welcome to yet another episode of the Recreant Journals. What I have for you today is a simple short horror story taken from my Wattpad. Well now, without further ado, enjoy. Have you ever felt like someone did something so vile and evil to you that you just can't move past it? Like the very thought of it makes you want to lash out. Like the striking of one's eyeball with a hot needle. That's how I felt when I caught my husband cheating on me. This happened in August of 2019. I had just got over this very abrupt flu-like illness that the doctors couldn't describe, and it hospitalized me for a few days. During that time, my husband of 8 years, who we'll call Terry, had only come to visit me once. My parents, on the other hand, and his, were there, however. I just believed maybe he was with our kids, and things came up. After all, the doctors didn't want that many visitors. However, as I was checking out, I had asked my mother how my kids had been. When she tells me they had been okay, as she and my sister had been helping babysit them. This didn't bother me much, until about a week later, Terry began being more distant. We hadn't been communicating as much, nor being affectionate. At times, I'd try to speak, and he'd only have small talk with me, and rush the conversations. Also, he'd reject my advances in our bedroom. This hurt, and I began to fall into a deep depression. However, my pride and joy rested still in my kids. As I cared for them, I noticed one day how my son kept acting as if my sister was me. Also, how she kept calling him her little man instead of Junior, as she normally does. Later that day, my son had told me about how my sister had been staying the night over in my absence. I felt betrayed and knew I had to confront her. So, I called, and it went straight to voicemail. With that, I decided I'd just speak to Terry about this possible affair. Funny though, how fate has a way of revealing things to you. See, my family didn't live far from us despite us living in Houston, Texas. I have to drive past my sister's place in order to get to ours. However, how would one feel as I'm driving past and I noticed Terry's car in my sister's driveway? I nearly made a second drive-through, but I didn't. I simply tried the door. When I couldn't open it, I busted out the window and climbed in. I'm sure this alarmed them as I heard scuffling from upstairs. I grabbed a knife from her drawer as Terry came down first. I demanded to know what he was doing here, and he exclaimed, "I was fixing her bathtub, dear. She had a leak." I laughed. He really thought me a fool, and before I knew it, I had already stabbed him. Sasha, my traitorous slut of a sister, came down next, and she screamed when she saw what happened to Terry. She asked, why did I do it? And I didn't think twice before punching her over the sofa. We began to fight for a while, as I explained my disgust at her sleeping with a married man. However, she protested her innocence with that same bullshit story of a leak. During the fight, we had destroyed a large portion of her living room, and as we made it in the kitchen, I hastily grabbed a bottle of wine and smashed her over the head with it. As she dropped and lay there bleeding, I felt a well of anger so potent in me that I couldn't help but stomp her head. I stomped her till she stopped moving. As I sat there, crying about the betrayal that just happened to me, I couldn't help but investigate this claim of a leak. As I went up the stairs and into her bedroom, I noticed the bed was done and tools in the bathroom. I stood there in shock. However, I then began to think to myself, whoops, I guess they were telling the truth.